it's very satisfying when someone calls you saying, I came to your farm, you taught me this, now I have this.
We wanted to start something to solve that problem, but at the same time create jobs, but at the same time also create an innovative solution.
Food is everything. That's where it starts. Everybody has to eat. COVID or no COVID, climate change or no climate change, poverty or no poverty, people have to eat.
It's calm and it moves gently, no pressure, no vibrations.
In this environment, we can expose them to all these different scenarios so they can learn how to preserve and collect the forensic traces and document them correctly so that later down the line they end up with a successful prosecution in court. And that's what we've tried to create in this academy.
President Nujoma undoubtedly gets his clear thinking and long life genes from his mother, who at the age of 92 still remembers clearly the difficult days of the past.
Kuna nonje bo.
Kuna njem. Umwe ekakunyari mota kama nalepo ngombe yaro. Twachigaro kebumbo. Ali rongorora kwikuti konjem. Ali sirikochi kuti tumende kitarererano. Ndengo ali suzumike pombanda jomse wanja amohanti kudika. Ngandi tio nina hototozo zipaganjwa tikuzonda popini. Otozipaga nchotorongo ironga biuri muyo kuzipaga. Digo yonda kuironga uyendi kuzipunguka rinoronga. Zipaga njike titorongo ngashina na toburu ntoko zipaga koke kukusana montungo koendera. Nino ai kendi kuyonda ndiko kukuse. Hakotorongo. Pakali tatongu mande komesho kwaru kandi ye nga. Oto dipagi toko dipago kokwe kukusama ntumbio upironga oye. Ninandi kuzonda pironga oye ndi kuzepoka rinoronga nimo.
Ayo ndara ngana kupra tate kuru kuja. Iyo kara ndewa emata uche ngandiyandi kiyaro ngwere na andagaruka nenge shino chakererwa kwa ngatunjuri pa ife musuru kwa uchibana.
Gashingi ndoyo chirongo shamanguruka. Manga epangero ryo SWAPO ryo lilipo ngangayo bateri komesho wa SWAPO chironga chetu ngashingino ukutungo mpirimo chirongo nokutungira kwachiwanu wana wa ipangero esikola opo tukufe ku uthigona no uposi no mikithi dhiripo yatuvuru okurwa omarugo genji ngowaro kusindana ukapoma ngachimu gashingi ndo tatokala kucha pangiro yoSWAPO tali konjo kutapu uthigona no kohenu njorowere no uposi kotukale tuna anongo baha mono kuchomu gongongono shi warowa uguno mididi thike penyo podika thike huku no meame.
My name is Naim Gorlick, and I'm here today as the representative and the president of the Windhoek Hebrew congregation in the Jewish community living in Namibia. Oh, he was a very great man, and I think he bestowed a tremendous amount of qualities and leadership into Namibia. I think for me, one of the outstanding issues was his vision and his guidance on leading Namibia from pre-independence to post-independence. And he was able to bring the people of Namibia together to move forward in that regard. And I think that was a very strategic move, a visionary move, but also he was very, very firm in how he felt things must be done, and he was able to take people with him in order to achieve what he was setting out to do. Dr. Nujoma was very straightforward. He came across as a spiritual man, and I think a lot of his values and a lot of his judgment was based on his spirituality. And a lot of the plans of changing Namibia to what it is today was because of that inherent spirituality that he had. Well, of course, he was a wise man, a very important man, and he will be greatly missed in Namibia. I think he stepped out of frontline politics after his presidency. He was always still involved, and one knew that he was still involved in the way the country was moving. But he did it with humility, and I think he never lost sight of how he felt from day one about Namibia and where Namibia and its people should go. And I think that is the vision that I hope Namibia embodies in the future and through the memory of Dr. Nujoma. May his great name grow exalted and sanctified in the world that he created as he willed. May he give reign to his kingship in your lifetimes and in your days, and in the lifetimes of the entire family of Israel, swiftly and soon. May his great name be blessed forever and ever. May his great name be blessed forever and ever. Blessed, praised, glorified, exalted, extolled, mighty, upraised and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he. Beyond any blessing and song, praise and consolation that are uttered in the world, now respond and say Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life upon us and upon Israel. He who makes peace in his heights, may he take peace upon us and upon Israel, and say Amen.
Well, a very good morning to you, Namibia, wherever you might be joining us from. As we mourn the passing of the late founding president, we also celebrate his life and the indelible mark that he has left on Namibia's scene, of course, politically and otherwise. His legacy will forever resonate with the liberation struggle and, of course, the freedom that many had fought for that brought the independence that we so forth enjoy in the country. Well, for today, we're going to continue, of course, starting off, as we know that there were some serious announcements that were made over the course of the last week, starting off on February the 9th, early in the morning, the president announcing the passing of the founding father. And then, of course, shortly after that, during the course of that day, the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology informing us that a mourning period has been declared from February the 9th. But now, so far, we know that that mourning period will now run until the funeral takes place on the 1st of March. We've also been informed during the week last week that all public gatherings by public institutions have been suspended. Any large gatherings, any conferences, workshops that were planned by public institutions, and of course also by extension private institutions during the mourning period as well. There's also been an advisory from the Ministry of Information that any celebratory large-scale activity, even if it's organized privately, should rather be postponed until after the funeral, which of course we've seen many have obliged to. The earlier on memorandum that was put on sporting activities has been amended slightly with school sports activities to continue so that it does not really hinder the school calendar for many of the educators as well. So some of the information that came out during the course of last week. But for the next 2 weeks, we will be making sure that we bring you that coverage every morning. Please do make sure to tune in to NBC One as well as our digital platforms and NBC Digital News online, as we are going to continue engaging many of the actors in different facets of Namibia's society, be it in the international relations, be it politicians, be it educators, academics, and the likes. My name is Ricardo Nkangosep, and I'll be with you until lunch this morning. When we come back after the break, we're going to speak with our first interviewee for this morning, as we are taking a bit of a focus from an international relations perspective in the life and times of the late founding father. Stay with us. Although we have it, if you just join us, of course, very good morning to you and welcome to the special live broadcast as we continue covering the life and times of the late founding father. Following independence, many Namibian ambassadors were focused on establishing diplomatic relations with key international partners. Monica Nashandi was Namibia's ambassador to the Nordic countries, as well as the former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, as well as the United States from 2019 to 2020. She now joins us with more on the role she had played during the late founding president's tenure, as her first posting was to Sweden in 1995, but will of course also reflect on a time spent with the United Nations right before independence. Ambassador Nashandi, thank you so much for making time out to join us this morning.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Well, it's of course always unfortunate to meet during such somber times, but nonetheless, I think conversations that are worthy for the nations to hear. Ambassador, just to start off before you, I think, getting to the crux of the conversation, how did you first hear of the news, and what was your initial reaction to the news of the passing of the founding father?
When I heard the passing of the founding father, I was heartbroken, but I think we were kind of prepared because the founding father was sick for some time, and we were all praying that he gets better. He got better. But I was heartbroken because the founding father, I have worked closely with him. He grew me, an icon of our liberation struggle. The man who always reminded us that we are fighters. Wherever you are a fighter. A man who actually made sure that he, even in the face of adversity, when he was called names, terrorist or so, he never gave up. He could answer to any questions and just say that we have a country to liberate. We have to fight the fascists and imperialists in order to take control of our natural resources. And that's how he prepared us and boost our morale to fight until the end. Even those of us served at the front line, that's what actually gave us the strength to say that we have a founding father who is committed to this country, and we have to make sure that we liberate our country.
In terms of, we know that many people will always say that his reputation preceded him first in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Of course, he was in exile, so for those that were at home, they would only hear about this mythical figure that's out there fighting for the liberation of the country. What was your first encounter with him? When did you hear about him first, and when did you meet him the first time?
Actually, we used to hear about Sam Nujoma from the broadcast from Exile when we were growing up. And when I was at high school, because we were highly politicized, and we also were encountering some planned combatants, because Oshigambo High School was situated just a few, maybe less than 2 kilometers from the military base. And the presence of the army was there. But then when we hear the broadcast talking about Nujoma, we were always encouraged. So I left the country in 1978 and in April, and unfortunately we were in Vietnam, and Kasinga was attacked, and just barely a month in there. And then from there, went for the military training by the Cubans. When you are trained by the Cubans, you become a very astute combatant. And then after that, sent to the front line. And then 1980, I was sent to Rwanda. That's where I met the founding president. I was sent to Rwanda. I was told that I was going to study Portuguese because the party needed someone, and the president needed someone to be interpreting or translating for him. So I was enrolled at the National Institute of Languages in Rwanda. I think I studied for 1 year. And then I used to translate and interpret when he met President Dos Santos. Now, I wasn't sure whether I was doing the right thing, whether I was in a position to actually say what was said. You know, you are meeting with the presidents, and there you are, you're on the spot. But when I saw President Dos Santos nodding, or my president nodding, then I said, okay, I'm on the right track. And we're going to the rallies in Rwanda. There was a big place where we can go for rallies, and the president will be speaking. Then I will be translating to the to the public speaking Portuguese, mutilating the language, vandalizing it, but, with political terminologies, whether it's in Portuguese or in French, in English, you get away with it. But I wasn't sure whether I was doing the right thing.
Whether you're doing the exact translation that it's supposed to be.
But then I also joined the Secretariat of SWAPO Youth League.
Was this now still in Angola?
Still in Angola, in Luanda. That was headed by Comrade Tuli Hiverwa as secretary. But the instruction was that we should set up the secretariat and also put structures in place. And our office was actually just opposite the late national chairman, David Meroro. And the office of the president was somewhere else. So we did that. And then we were also given the instructions by the president to go across the world to mobilize for support, especially for either scholarship for the Namibian youth, mobilize for school materials for the refugee camps, or financial assistance. So we actually traveled across the world, whether events organized by the World Federation of Democratic Youth, what was based in Hungary, or International Union Students, or the Pan-African Youth Movement in Algeria. But we traveled across the length and breadth of this world, and we came back and report to the president that, Comrade President, that's what we have done. And we really got somewhere with that.
One of the things, Ambassador Nashani, that keeps coming up, theme is how he had always put a lot of trust in young people, young professionals. Like you said, you were sent, of course, to Angola. You did 1 year to master the language, and then the next thing now you're put on stage to translate at political rallies and so on. Talk to me a little bit around how he handled young people and the amount of responsibility that you were entrusted with at such a young age, looking particularly, of course, in the context of the liberation struggle.
Well, the thing is that SWAPO had policies that were very clear. Wherever you are, you operate within those policies. The Namibian youth that we dealt with that time were those, like, for example, in the refugee camps, or those who were studying elsewhere. I remember there were student conferences where we had gone from Rwanda to attend this and just talk to them, to also encourage them to talk about Namibia, because it was not only the responsibility of the party to do so, or the SWAPO Youth League, but all of us had responsibility to do so. So we did it, but within the confine of the policies as laid down by the party. Yeah.
And in terms of, the leadership style, can you reflect a little bit on his leadership style during the time? Many say, of course, he was very, very disciplined. He was very serious about, being there, respect between the different ranks and files, everybody playing their role, playing their position. Reflect a little bit on how you experienced his leadership style during that time.
The founding president was a leader, a charismatic one, a thinker. So when you sit in front of him talking to you, you know that you are talking to someone who knows what he's doing, a dedicated leader. So in the person who stood by a decision, any decision that he takes, he stands by it. So you are actually just encouraged by his commitment. He never wavered, and he was steadfast. When he gives commandment or instructions, he always reminds you that wherever you are a soldier because we are fighting. You don't have to carry a gun to be a soldier. Just mind you that we have a country to liberate. So he was strict, but also at the same time, he had a soft side. When you are with Nujoma, like when we travel, he was a disciplinarian when it comes to what he eats, what he ate. So after the meetings, he'll call you, you sit down, you joke, and then, of course, many of us used to find a reason to run away because we always think that his food was boring, because it's all boiled food, no salt, no trimmings on whatever he ate, and then, but he had that soft side as well. But within the conversation you are having, talking about lighter things, then he'll always say that, let's fight for our country. We have to liberate. We have to take back our resources that are being exploited by the imperialists and fascists. So he groomed us that way.
Of course, your first posting was for Sweden in 1995, but before we get to that, I just wanted that last one in the 80s. You joined, of course, moved over to the United Nations before independence. Reflect a little bit on that one. How did you influence that particular decision, and what was the role at the United Nations?
You know, Ricardo, I was so surprised when I was called to the President's office, and he told me that I was going to New York to work at the United Nations, at the SWAPO Observer Mission to the United Nations. I looked at myself, okay, apart from the experience that I gained when I was with the SWAPO Youth League, of course, attending international conferences, I asked myself, am I fit to be at the United Nations, because that is a jungle. I took the instructions. He said, you are going to work with Comrade Helm Tangula. I was, I think, about 28 years old. Then packed up my bags. You know, you are commanded by the commander-in-chief. I got to New York. Comrade Helm Tangula was waiting for me. Now, Comrade Helm Tangula is a person who will groom you for a period of time. And he will actually give you the gist of what needs to be done. But he doesn't babysit you. He said, here you are sent to work together, but we are here at the United Nations, and you know already what needs to be done. We used to work with the fourth committee. The UN had, I think, 6 committees. And the fourth committee was a committee on decolonization, was dealing with the issues of colonialism, and of course dealing with the issues, for example, Namibia, South Africa, Palestine, and all those. So we used to attend those meetings, explaining the fight was still going on. But that time, it was all the time when the agreement on ceasefire agreement was being negotiated and about to be signed. And the ceasefire agreement, as you know, was signed between Angola, Cuba, and South Africa, because that was the time of when Reagan actually was on power, when he started linking the issue of Namibia, the independence of Namibia, to the withdrawal of Cubans from Angola. So the negotiations were going on. We could also participate in those. But there were other things that we're doing also, working with the United Nations Council for Namibia. I remember one time, as I said, Helm Tangula will give you the idea what to do, but he doesn't babysit you. Yeah. He had to travel to headquarters, and we were preparing the presentation to motivate the UN Council for Namibia to make budgetary provisions for the production of a documentary on Kasinga. Because you know that after Kasinga, the Boers had gone to the international community to convince them that it was a military base. But we kept saying that this is a refugee camp. You know, actually, when we in SWAPO Youth, we were gone to the Kasinga to put concrete on the grave. That was SWAPO Youth Central Committee. So he said, I'm called to headquarters. Now you go to the UN Council for Namibia to motivate this. So I went there. Of course, there were other countries, or like-minded countries. So I started talking about this, and then I remember something that I'll never forget in my life. There was a deputy representative or deputy ambassador of Egypt. And in the middle of my presentation, he said, you know, the language, the diplomatic language at the UN. Yeah. With all due respect to the distinguished representative of SWAPO, we don't want to be lectured, because some of us have been following the history of the liberation struggle, even maybe before she was born. Oh, I was devastated.
Threw you off the feet completely.
Here I am talking about the country that I know. I have survived the attacks, and I have been, you know, at the center of oppression in the South African apartheid operation. And now someone from, you know, I was getting emotional. I remember the ambassador of Zimbabwe was Mundenge. And the ambassador of Botswana was Rekwaira, who later on became the deputy special representative to Mati Atisari during the transition period. So they said, they used to call me the natural resources of Namibia, because I used to talk so much about the exploitation of the national resources of Namibia by transnational corporations.
Because
so
the commander-in-chief had hammered that into you.
The commander
imperialists and
said
fascists
that
and natural resources.
you are going to an imperialist country, and then there are imperialist forces at the UN who don't want our independence. He was referring to the five Western contact group. Yeah. So he said, the ambassador of Zimbabwe said, my sister, sit down, calm down. And if you knew Ambassador Mundenge, may his soul rest in peace. And he went on and said, no, we are talking about the history of the people who have been exploited. We are talking about the people who have been killed, women and children. So if you don't want to participate in these discussions, you better leave so we can go on. So when I was put on the spot, because I said, Helmut just sent you to a meeting. He sent me to the meeting of the 4th committee, and I remember at some point he also sent me, at that time there was also a group in Namibia called Resolution 435,
yes.
chaired by Advocate Brian Olin. And the members were, I remember, the Peter Cope and others. In the meeting, there was a meeting that organized to take place. And
it's not a late Judge Olin.
Judge Olin, yes. And Helmut Angula said, you go to that meeting. That's actually where I met late President Hage in person, although prior to that I was in Zambia when I was attending a course organized by
That's not at the United Nations Institute for Namibia now?
Yeah, no. I was at the University of Zambia, attending a course on youth and development organized by the Commonwealth. It's called your Commonwealth Youth Program in conjunction with the University of Zambia. So I had not met him in person that time. I was there for 9 months. But when I went to that meeting, I met him with late Comrade Dipo and others. So, but then Helm said, you are going to this meeting. I'm going elsewhere. So you make sure that you do what our founding president, that time was not founding president, our commander-in-chief had told us to do. So you are on your toes all the time. And then, of course, that time when the negotiations were going on, you remember Bert Carlson, a Swedish, who was also now commissioner, but also in charge of the Council of Namibia.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he died on a plane accident, and he didn't live to see what was happening.
You know, for many people, once you look at it, for the layman on the street, they're not really exposed to what happens in the diplomatic spaces.
Yeah.
We know, of course, Resolution 435 came through. It led the way for the transition. UNTAC and all of that came in behind. How important was the work that had to be done, from an administrative perspective as well, behind the scenes, particularly with the lobbying at the United Nations and other support from the international community?
Yeah. When people hear about resolutions being passed or adopted at the United Nations, they think that people sit in a room and talk about those resolutions. It's work, that is done elsewhere. Depending on the interest, a particular country sponsor a resolution and lobby the like-minded people. Now, for us, most of the time it was always those Western contact group, and of course, countering what the progressive world wanted for Namibia. But then there was, as I said, there were 6 committees, but there was what it was called the 7th committee, that the delegates lounge. You have to hang around there, because actually that's where the lobbying took place, apart from, countries meeting with the supporters.
So you had to build your case now informally first before you go and actually sit down at a meeting. So by the time you're in the meeting, there's already a meeting of the minds.
By the time you go to the meeting, you have actually gathered the support from all the people who are in your camp, if I can put it that way. So when you go there, then people take the floor to support your position. Others do that as well. So it was a lot of lobbying. And also the American community You had people who supported our struggle, that the late Erombe Brath in Harlem, you know, mobilizing the Harlem community. We had people everywhere, the anti-apartheid. I remember I went to the US for the first time, 1985. That's when I met Vicky Ehrenstein, now Vicky Atoibo. She was part of what they call the National Lawyers Guild, and they had organized, I went for a speaking tour to universities in the American community, and she was very, very active. So apart from the work at the UN, we also have to talk to the community, because that was very, very important, because they could also add to our voice.
Yeah, that social license to support the voice of the struggle.
Exactly.
Come 1990 now, of course, advent of independence comes in. We have that return, that famous return, of course, of him coming back, of course, kissing the land as well, coming back home. We have the 1989 elections, and then that transition happens, of course, now that you have to come back home and build. We know that for many, one of his responsibilities was to make sure that there are enough Namibians educated that can come and run the administration. Talk to me a little bit about that transitional period now, getting into independence and becoming part of the Foreign Affairs Administration that must now set up this particular branch of government, for lack of a better word.
Actually, as I said, I was in New York, and then a directive came from the Commander-in-Chief that I should join Comrade Hage's delegation, the first delegation to come home. Now, the United Nations refused to provide me with a ticket, because they said that if I was being repatriated, I have to go directly to Namibia. Can you imagine the goosebumps that I have to go to Namibia? And I think I was going to now the first one to arrive in Namibia. So I traveled to Zambia, then to Botswana, then I landed at Eros Airport. I was so scared. And
you've been out of the country for a decade plus now.
I've been out of the country maybe for 12 years. Yeah. So my family came to meet with me, because I was communicating with them when I was in New York. And anyway, then we came now to the establishment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mind you, many of us have that background of being SWAPO representatives during the liberation struggle, because SWAPO had offices almost across the world. So we were given the task to establish the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because, you know, foreign affairs were handled from Pretoria directly. There was no Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There was Civic Affairs, there was Defense, and perhaps others. Now, we were told to establish the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. When we got to the building where we were supposed to operate from, there was another group, I'm sure set there by the administration. Now, you can imagine the commotion and the mistrust and all this we have to deal. Maybe they saw us as terrorists still, and we saw them as people part of the administration. But with time, we actually worked together. And then how we set the ministry up is that the Commonwealth has seconded a very retired, seasoned Ghanaian diplomat, Ambassador Deborah. He's the one who now gave us a course, training course on diplomacy. Everything that comes with diplomacy, even down to etiquette, how you eat, how you, maybe even how you swallow, you know, we used to. And then we established, we started now crafting the manuals of operations, the foreign policy regulations, the visa and consular manuals, the protocol manuals, and setting up the registry. It was really good. We were working very hard, and many of us, of course, had that experience of working abroad. Of course, we didn't have the administrative part of it, but Ambassador Deborah was there to help us, and we did very well. And from there, and then now the posting started, and the president has to look for ambassadors, the group of first ambassadors to represent the country, and I didn't go in the first batch like 1990 or 1991. I was appointed as Undersecretary for Political and Economic Affairs in the ministry to deal with bilateral relations. And well, there's a thin line between bilateral and international relations because when you do multilateralism. So I was there until 1995, when I was called.
That's now for the first posting.
For the first posting.
To Sweden, Nordic countries.
Yeah. I was called to State House, and the president said, he always called me a soldier. Always called me a soldier. Yeah, you are a soldier. I'm giving you a task. I'm sending you to Sweden. Sweden is a friendly country. They supported us. And the Nordic countries, honestly.
Nordic was very, very important. I mean, you know, like you mentioned a bit earlier on, particularly the work, for example, the likes of Marty Adisari had done.
Yes.
Must have been a big responsibility at the time.
It was. You couldn't talk about the refugee camps without associating that with the Nordic countries. They had given food. They have given clothes. They have given medical personnel to work in the refugee camps. And even, I mean, when I went to Sweden, I was actually comfortable because I was working among the people that I knew. Sten Lilander, who was the first ambassador, was also in Rwanda. When we were in Rwanda, you know, we used to go there. And then I had gone to Sweden before that on a tour to speak at universities. And I was among the people that I know. And you know, I think the second governor of the Bank of Namibia was also, Mr. Eriksson, was also from Sweden. And Sweden had given us the budgetary support to start now operating, because we're putting emphasis on education, health, and other things, just to establish them, because those were challenges at the time. Of course, they are still challenges. So I was among friends, and I was comfortable, but I was also mindful that I was under a watchful eye, because these people knew me and they knew some Nujoma, so I made sure that I behaved. So, and also then dealing with Finland. I presented my letters to Marty Adisari, whom I have met at the United Nations before, and he was also the special representative for the Secretary General. So, and actually with my background, having attended the high school at Oshigambo High School that was run by the Finnish missionaries, I was comfortable.
So there was a very familiarity already with the Nordic countries.
I could catch up with my former teachers and also the communities that were supporting Namibia as well. Norway as well. So it was working among friends, but really emphasizing on budgetary support for us to make sure that we address the pending issues of education and health.
How would you describe, I think just in conclusion, as you're coming to close off the conversation, what kind of legacy has he left for the diplomatic service of Namibia?
The legacy he has left is that he has actually given instructions to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Theo Gurira, by then, that we have to establish the joint commissions of operations with countries, so that at least we establish the relations with those countries, bilateral, but also accumulated in multilateral affairs when you have to deal with issues of multilateral nature. You know, the founding president was fighting for Namibia to be recognized as what is it now? Not a middle-income country, but a small, what is it now? Yeah, not...
As a lower-income country.
Yeah. So first, we are fighting. There is that title they give to countries, a CIF least development countries. So we are fighting for the least in development countries. The president fought for that. But everywhere he went, he was actually saying that we have to make sure that we train. He campaigned for scholarships for young people to train as scientists, as doctors, as lecturers, and you know his background. He went to school when he retired. That was his emphasis, that we have to make sure that the natural resources of our country, we have to take control of them. And we have to make sure that we are educated to do so. But we have to be healthy as well. We have to make sure that our nation is healthy. He had that legacy, and you know what he has done, created educational institutions, the health centers, and just keeping unity, that we have to be united. You know his slogan that has been repeated over the days. We have to be, that he said, we have to be brave, you know, because nobody respects a coward, so we don't have to be cowards. So we know exactly what legacy has, the foundation he was laying for us. And now we all of us are saying that the young people should follow. I do not know whether we have prepared them for that after, you know, what Sam Nujoma did when he was in office and before the
You think we can do better?
We can do better. One, we have to take control of our resources so that we invest that in education and health. We have to train our own people so that at least we carry on his legacy. Otherwise, honestly, we will fail him. He will not forgive us, even he's 6 feet underneath. We have to try our level best, but we have to equip the young people with the necessary ammunition and resources so that we can carry on this legacy.
Ambassador Nashandi, thank you so much for making time out to join me this morning.
You are most welcome.
Ambassador Nashandi, of course, just reflecting a little bit on the relationship with the founding father, and of course, just generally giving us some insights on how the diplomatic service here was started immediately after independence, but much more reflections on what happened before independence. She was first posted to the United Nations in the 80s, and then, of course, immediately after independence, was the Undersecretary for Bilateral Relations in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and in 1995 was posted on the first posting to Sweden and the rest of the Nordic countries. We'll continue with more conversations after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back as we still continue with this special broadcast. Of course, we'd like to urge you to make sure to recognize that we are, of course, during a mourning period. We know there's quite a busy weekend for many people, but we appreciate the fact that many Namibians are sticking to the culture that we have as a country during this time as well. Of course, we are expected to fly flags at half-mast and at the same time as well behave in a certain manner during the mourning period. But for now, of course, as you know, many people held the founding father in high regard. He meant a lot to many Namibians, and we are taken to the streets to go hear from them what their initial reactions were at the passing of the founding father. So let's take a listen to these messages of condolences from members of the public. Immediately after that, we'll have the news highlights at 11 o'clock. And when I come back, we chat with Ambassador Wilbert Halau. Stay with us.
I remember the day when he came back from exile, how he came down the aeroplane and kissed the Namibian soil. I am pleased. Family members of Dr. Sem Savisihuna, Nujoma, may the Lord save and brave you. We need you. We are standing behind him because he was for all, not anyone separate, but for the whole Namibia. I am pleased God gave us a man like him.
They must be very strong.
I would like to express my condolences to the Nujoma family for the passing on of our first president, His Excellency Dr. Sem Nujoma. We pray that his soul has gone to rest, eternal rest, and we wish the family well. We pray for them that the Lord will comfort them and keep them during this tough time, and they should know that we are all together as a nation. We are mourning, and we are terrified of this news, and we are grateful of what he has done for us as Namibia.
It's just gone 11 o'clock and a very good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's now time for the news highlights here on NBC. I'm Dapewa Mbambi. To begin with, veteran Zambian politician Dr. Vernon Mwanga says the late founding president survived many mail bomb attempts on his life while leading the liberation struggle in Zambia. Dr. Mwanga, who was the first chairman and president of the United Nations Council for Namibia in the late 60s and early 70s, says the Zambian government had a tough time providing security to the then most sought-after freedom fighter. Dr. Vernon Johnson Mwanga, who will be turning 81 later this year, gave up his youthful days to join the liberation struggle for Africa at the tender age of 19. He is credited with, among others, the victory of Namibia when he took this cause to the UN Security Council and won. He was only 22 then. Today, he recalled some of the roles he undertook to save the life of late Dr. Nujoma. In 2014, Dr. Mwanga, together with the late Dr. Nujoma, were honored with doctorates at the prestigious Copperbelt University in Kitwe, Zambia.
Number of bombs, letter bombs, which were put in envelopes, sent to the Liberation Center. One of them exploded and injured, killed one ANC cadre, and injured one who later became the Speaker of the Parliament of South Africa. So after that incident, we decided that there were too many letter bombs going to to the Liberation Center, we decided that no male would go to the Liberation Center without passing through security screening by our security services. And that is what continued to happen. And they intercepted many letter bombs, which were going to SWAPO, and some addressed to some Nujoma, some to others, which would have exploded if they had been opened by them. So, but we made sure that our security services screened every letter, every parcel that was going to the Liberation Center was screened to protect freedom fighters from being killed on our territory. Should live on forever and ever, because that is what Africa needs. Africa needs leaders who are selfless and who are committed to their people, like some Nujoma did. So I hope that they'll remember him and honor him by ensuring that they emulate his life and his life of service to his people, service to Namibia, service to Africa. That is what Africa needs.
The Kavango East region's former liberation fighters have joined the rest of the nation in mourning founding president. Among them is retired Colonel Mario Thikindo Shoro, who was among Nuyoma's first bodyguards during exile and shortly after independence. The MICT Kavango East team visited him at his house at Shova village in the Kavango East region. Only 14 years of age when he fled the country and joined the SWAPO military force in exile. In 1974, he was assigned by founding president to meet up with Namibian people that were fleeing from Namibia in efforts to join others and fight for Namibia's freedom. He narrated that they camped at a military base known as Shatotwa. He then became one of the training officers along with Commissioner Greenwell Matongo and David Ushona and many others. In the same year, he was injured on his left leg when he fell from a moving military truck while searching for grass used for building a military barracks. Shoro further encouraged Namibian citizens, specifically the youth, to emulate from his legacy and leadership style.
Founding father nashakana naye mo 1960.
I first met founding president in 1968 in Lusaka. I met him with former President Pohamba. I stayed with him for 2 years while in Lusaka. Then I left Lusaka and went back to the battlefield in 1970 up to 1972. Thereafter, we were sent to a military training in Russia for 6 months. When founding father saw my injuries, he told me not to go back into the battlefield. He then asked me to stay with him at his house until when my leg recovered. Thereafter, I was sent to security and bodyguard training in Cuba for 9 months. Upon returning, I went back to Luanda and later went back to Yugo, where I met General Kanimi of the city police. Kanimi was our commander during that time. After a training, I became Sam Nima's full-time bodyguard along with other colleagues such as Nepando and others until when I was officially assigned by the founding to go to DRC, where I stayed for 1 year and 3 months.
In other news, a member of parliament and LPM member Utara Motu gave a scathing critique of global decision-making processes, condemning the exclusion of African leaders from discussions about African issues. Motu was a delegate at the just-ended Munich Security Conference held in Germany during a panel discussion entitled "Never Waste a Quarter-Life Crisis, New Solutions in a Polarized Century," moderated by Vice Chairman and CEO of the Munich Security Conference, Benedict Frank. Motu highlighted the hypocrisy of formulating policies for the Global South in the absence of its own representatives.
For me, I stand as an advocate for African voices. What this would do is to help me emphasize African voices by ensuring that platforms like this reach a larger scale of African countries. We need more African leaders, not just myself and a couple of African faces that I've seen, but we need them to be on the table. You cannot continue making African, what I was talking about in the room, that you can't continue providing African solutions to African problems, excluding African leaders. That doesn't work. We need to enhance the African agenda on a global sphere. We need to enhance the Global South agenda within the international relations. We are the ones, for example, in climate change that deal with the most deepened consequences of global change that sometimes is inflicted by the Western world. But when it comes to the decision making, billions of dollars are channeled through climate change, accountability organizations. And when money is funneled down, it does not reach to the African countries that actually need it. So we need the platform. We need to have more diverse voices. This is a very good start. I appreciate it. But how you can help me is let's go to Africa and let's have a voice there.
On to Nigeria, Nigeria only has 6,000 medical and dental consultants left, with over 1,200 leaving in the past 5 years, according to a new report. Health experts warn the shortfall will hurt healthcare standards and urge the government to take urgent actions. CGTN has more.
Enenche Augustine became a licensed medical doctor 15 years ago and is now a consultant cardiologist. He says many of his colleagues have relocated to other countries due to poor pay and other unfavorable working conditions in Nigeria.
If you are a doctor, a consultant particularly, and you work solely with the government, you cannot marry, feed your children, pay their fee, and build a house. It's not possible, except you are doing something else, right? So when people look at this, and the easy way out is just get out.
Consultants or senior physicians who have completed all their specialist training in their chosen area of specialty. Thousands of other health workers, such as nurses, have also left the country.
So you want to see a doctor now, it's very difficult. To be honest, it's very, very difficult. Because if you go now, one doctor is attending to over 50 people. At the end of the day, they will tell you come the following day to meet the doctor. If you go by 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning, before you know, 4:30, I'm not yet finished seeing the doctor.
Nigeria's health ministry says about 16,000 doctors left the country in the last 5 years to practice overseas.
Brazil's most famous monument, the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro, is at the center of a battle between church and state. For over 90 years, Christ the Redeemer has overlooked Rio, but now a dispute is brewing over its control. The Catholic Church seeks ownership of the statue and the surrounding terrace, while the Brazilian government argues it belongs to all. Congress is debating bills supporting the church's claim. Officials warn that granting control to the church could harm conservation efforts in Tijuca National Park. The park's preservation relies on revenue from ticket sales, which also funds maintenance. The debate is intensifying as record tourists numbers highlight the statue's cultural and economic significance. Al Jazeera has more.
For more than 90 years, Christ the Redeemer has stood tall, watching over Rio de Janeiro, changing colors to embrace various humanitarian causes, welcoming millions of visitors every year, many hoping to capture the perfect selfie with one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. But now the iconic monument is at the heart of a fierce battle over who should control it, the Catholic Church or the Brazilian state, owner of the land beneath its feet and the forest surrounding it.
No one disputes the government's rights to the land. The church simply seeks ownership of the statue itself and the area built below it.
The church currently manages events and uses the proceeds to maintain the statue, but it's pushing for more. ownership of the second terrace, which houses shops and a restaurant. Its lawyer says that the federal government has failed to maintain basic infrastructure, like the bathrooms and elevators. The stakes have only risen, with 2 bills now under debate in Congress supporting the church's claim.
If we hand over control to the church, we'd essentially be privatizing a cultural heritage that belongs to all Brazilians, Christian and non-Christian alike. It would also send the wrong message that national parks created to preserve the environment could be dismantled or partially privatized.
And that concludes the news highlights at this hour. Do stay tuned for the special broadcast in memory of the founding president and father of the Namibian nation, that is Dr. Sam Nujoma. Until next time, it's goodbye.
The way I can keep in my health, to walk 6 kilometers or 10 kilometers early in the morning before the sun rises is the best medicine one can get.
President Nujoma shows outstanding discipline and dedication in his daily regime, which starts every day with early morning exercises.
7, 8, 9, 10.
The responsibility of being the president of a country and the demands it places on a person is a taxing job for anyone. He's without doubt one of Africa's heroes.
Welcome back to the special broadcast celebrating the life and times of the founding father of the Republic of Namibia as we know it. Well, since gaining independence, Namibia has established economic, political, cultural, and other ties with numerous countries worldwide, driven by our needs and aspirations. As the nation mourns the loss of its founding president, Dr. Sam Nujoma, his invaluable contributions to regional solidarity and diplomacy are being honored beyond our borders. To reflect on his legacy, we are now joined by former Namibia's ambassador to Zambia, Sweden, as well as South Africa from 1991 to 2006, Ambassador Wilbert Halau. Ambassador, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for making time out to join us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Would have, of course, loved to have this conversation under different circumstances, but we are here now. How did you hear about the news of the founding father's passing, and what were your initial reactions to hearing that news?
Ricardo, I was saddened. Although I know that the founding president has been frequenting hospitals, so I was devastated when I heard, the passing on. So that's why we have lost our founding president, father of the Namibian nation, and we have lost a Pan-Africanist and then internationalist. So definitely I was very, very saddened, I think, to hear the passing of Comrade Nujoma.
Of course, many say that, especially because of the fact that he was in exile for so long, that before anybody, for most Namibians, before they met him, they heard about him, either on the radio during those years or just stories around the struggle. What was your first encounter with the late president? How did you hear about him first, and how was your first time meeting him?
How did I hear him first? I think it was, we used to listen to the radio from Tanzania, and later from Lusaka, and various places on the struggle of Namibia, while I was at secondary school in Ongwediva. Then, when I saw him first, or met him first, it was 1977, after the passing of the military training in Angola. He came to address at least the trainees and they gave us an order. So you are trained now. All what you need to do, take a gun and go to the front, and then you fight the minority apartheid system in Namibia to liberate this country. So since 1977, I've been meeting him, not necessarily one-on-one, in Luanda and various places.
In terms of exile, I know for a lot of you left around between 1974 and 1978. Did you also leave during the same time for exile?
Yes. Yeah. 1990. So the people were living in different groups.
Different groups. Oh, okay.
Yes. It was not necessary to say, okay, let us all. They're coming in 10, 20, 30. Even 1 or 2. Yeah.
When did you officially start working together with him before, if you look at just the period before independence? Of course, 1977, you say it's the first time you met. When was the time that you had actually started working together?
It was, I think, 1981, 82 there.
What did you make of his leadership style during that time?
Yeah, because that time is when the negotiations started. That brought about the independence of Namibia, and Comrade founding president. Every time he came from either New York or Geneva, he has to make time to come to the front line, or the front, what we call it, the operational area, to brief the soldiers. So therefore, I think that's the time he normally briefs us, the update, and how we have to move forward. Yes.
How would you describe his leadership style? What were some of the main tenets that you picked up from his leadership style?
His leadership style, I can say, I think if I have to take it, I mean, even throughout now, Nujoma is very intelligent. He's a strategist. He's a good listener. Nujoma is listening very well when you talk to him. He said that is, I think, even the core of him. He's a networker. He remained, I think, every time Nujoma, wherever he goes, he put networking as a form of diplomacy to reach out to various people of different type. Very, very good networkers. And during my time, I think, conducting so many people, I have never seen a characteristic of networking like Comrade founding president. Very, very good network. Wherever he goes, he network, and he has got a power of persuasion. He persuades at least the people he's contacting, and then they have to follow for him.
Your first posting was in 1991 to Zambia, but before that, of course, we know that the foreign mission itself had to be established first before anybody had to be posted. Speak to us a little bit around that period, you know, the independence in 1990 and leading up to, you know, that first posting in 1991.
Ricardo, maybe let me take you back a little bit. Yeah, for me, I work as a diplomat, SWAPO diplomat. I was posted to Botswana in 1997 to 1990. Then 1990.
That's from 1987 to 1990?
Yes.
Okay.
In Francistown, Botswana. I was representing SWAPO there. Then thereafter, 1991, I was posted to Zambia until 94. Then later, I was posted to Sweden, 1999, to 2003. 2003 to 2006, I was posted to South Africa. And then my last posting was in DR Congo. Yeah. 2013, 2014, 2018.
2014 to 2018.
Yes.
I see you brought a picture there as well. I think is that of the first posting?
Yes, Ricardo.
This can maybe take us through that one before we get into.
It's a very rich picture. Yeah, it was not taken during the commissioning.
Okay.
This picture was taken in NAMDEB or CDM by that particular time in 1991, and it has got the first crop of ambassadors, Namibia's ambassadors, the first one. The only problem we have here is that one of our colleague, Pers, is not here. Asheke, Pers Asheke, is not here. But all of them in 1991, they are here.
So that's the first crop of ambassadors.
This is the first crop that was commissioned by President Nujoma.
If you can maybe just perhaps take us through who's who on the...
All right. The sitting row, we have Madame Mvula, Donata Mvula. We have Comrade Nikki Nashandi. Mvula, Donata Mvula, she was posted to Sweden. The first Namibian ambassador to Sweden. Nikki Nashandi was posted to that particular time, the Russian Federation, and Comrade Veiko Ngiwete was posted to the United Kingdom. And here we got Comrade Johnny Aoto, may his soul rest in peace. He was posted to Angola. Comrade Tulia Mini Kalombo was posted to the USA, and Comrade Shapaka Ukungwa was posted to the Belgium, and Comrade William Amaguru was posted to the OAU, but that particular time, yeah, my soul rest in peace. Also, he also passed on. And here you have me here. I'm here. And then we got Comrade Akwake, Elia Akwake. And then, because I'm saying it's a rich picture, here we have also some of us were also SWAPO chief representative, representing SWAPO of Namibia. Like myself, I was in Botswana. Comrade Amaguru was in Ethiopia. Comrade Shapwa was in the UK. Comrade Karumo was in India. And Comrade Veiko was in Lusaka. Nikki Nashandi was in Libya. Yeah, and then Comrade Tasheke, I think, was in the New York. Of course, he's not here, yeah, on this picture, but at least for the audience, it will be better to see. These were the first crop of ambassador, which was commissioned by Comrade Savishuna Nujoma.
What was his foreign policy during that time? You know, you're getting posted right now. Of course, we just received independence with a lot of support from the international community, both bilaterally and multilaterally. But what was his main tenets around foreign policy during that time? His
main tenet of foreign policy is to keep solidarity alive, because we were just emerging from the bush. And when independence came, he has been emphasizing on economic diplomacy. And he has told all the ambassadors to say, stay away from your offices. Take time to stay in the boardroom, because we want at least foreign investment, we want this one and we want that one. So therefore, Nujoma, I think, had at least that thing to say, okay, all ambassadors, I don't want those ambassadors who are just sitting in the offices. Go and do then, because as I said, it's a very good network. Go and network with the business community, with the government. Look for whatever we can do, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's a business community, to come and invest in Namibia, new Namibia.
In terms of the work, if one looks at it, you know, particularly like Zambia, for example, being a frontline state, had a huge role to play in terms of the preparation for a lot of the civil servants, for example, that came and took over the administration at independence. And that must have been a big responsibility, getting that posting to Zambia in 1991. I mean, it tells me that it's sort of like a signifier that you were one of his most trusted lieutenant when it comes to diplomatic relations, getting that posting in Zambia.
Yeah, definitely, because really it was also the time Zambia went to multi-party elections. It was not easy because the UNIP, which has ruled Zambia for many years, was defeated by the movement for multi-party democracy, Chiluba. And I can tell you, in the whole region, I'm talking about southern region, was a little bit, sort of surprised. And then I can tell you I had a call from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Zambia, Benon Mwanga, and Lemi Mushota. They called me somewhere around 11 midnight to drive to their offices. And then they told me that President Chiluba wants to introduce himself to the region, but we find it very difficult to be accepted by other members of the region. Can you facilitate? So I did it. It was not easy to convince Comrade Safishuna Nujoma, as the President of Namibia. I have to talk to him. They tell him that, yes, Zambia is our neighbor, no move. So therefore, I think what we need to do, receive Chiluba as a new president of Zambia. So therefore, he received Chiluba, and then the whole region was also opened up at least to receive President Chiluba. But there was also issue because SWAPO had properties there in Zambia. Yeah, so it was also my duty to see to it that everything was done accordingly, without much ado. So therefore, I think I had really a work to do here in Zambia as a first High Commissioner of Namibia.
Reflect a little bit on our role, I think, within regional politics within Southern Africa. We know, of course, that he was quite a respected statesman within SADC and, of course, the continent as well. When the news was announced of his passing, just the condolences coming in. I think the African Union was the first multilateral organization that actually posted a condolences through the commissioner's
Many
office.
of them, I think they came. Yeah, they came at least, I think, to pay their respect and the condolence, I think, to the bereaved family of Comrade Nujoma. Yeah, so therefore, I think, as I said, he's a Pan-Africanist. That's why he's well known there, and even not only in the region, in the Africa, but even the whole world over. The Ministry of International Relations and Cooperation has received so many condolences messages from various parts of the world.
Within the region, talk to us just about the role that we had played also in peacekeeping in the region during his time in office. I know, of course, from your experience as well, you have a lot of experience also in the military matters before independence. We've had a foray in the DRC as well during his time, which was also somewhat also criticized as well. Just reflect a little bit on the role that Namibia had played in terms of maintaining regional peace and security during his time in office.
Ricardo, I listened to the interview of the governor of Kavango East, where he said that it was Nujoma who brought at least stability in that region because there was so much movement of UNITA elements there. So what Nujoma did was to use a leverage to start the two-party warring party, MPLA, or the government of Angola and UNITA to talk. So that's why we had a Lusaka peace talk, which included Savimbi and Dos Santos. Though to my disappointment, some of the time he did not, come, and they never even sent anybody. Yeah, but later he came. Yeah, so, but what Nujoma did was to close the movement between Angola and Namibia, from the other side of Zambia up to Kavango West here towards Angwena region there. Yeah, with the military there. And then there was, because the UNITA used to use the stabilization in the eastern Kavango there, taking cattle there. They used to use at least filling station here to take petrol there, to use there. But when it was closed, that brought the defeat of UNITA till today. So he contributed too much on regional stability between Angola and Namibia. With DRC, yes, it's Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Angola who have sent troops to DR Congo to help our colleagues there. That's why the situation stabilized. I'm so saddened that I think there are new elements that is coming up now, because DR Congo has been enjoying relative peace, but I can see that now at least there is a lot of problems, especially on the eastern side of Congo. And there are troops of the UN. MONUSCO has been there for quite a long time. And SADC, to some extent, have also sent some troops there to at least level on the security situation of that particular countries. But there is a destabilization coming from where I do not know. I've been, I think now outside the service. So, but I think I'm so saddened that the situation in Congo has erupted again. And I believe and hope that the forces that are there, whether it's the UN, MONUSCO, or SADC, will be able to bring it to normalcy.
Yeah. Knowing his foray with
so he sent some troops there, and 2001, I think they all, or later, I think they finished their mission and then come back home. Yes.
Well, some were saying now, and that's actually what I wanted to get to. Do you think he would have committed troops again, looking at the situation in the region, DRC, of course? I think I dare to throw probably Mozambique also in the mix if we're just looking at the regional civil instability at the moment.
Excuse me?
Do you think he would have, committed some troops or provided some sort of assistance, for example, to DRC right now as the situation is escalating?
It will depend on the situation on the ground. It will depend on this. Yeah, not only to give, to send troops. There are other ways to also assist. Yeah, as a SADC, they normally meet and discuss all the modus operandi on how to do it. And for those countries that are unable to do that, they can also support in other ways, either financial support or material support, or whatever the case might be.
He was a big Pan-Africanist, as you mentioned a little bit earlier on. I just wanted to hear from you as well, Ambassador. What are your views currently, I think, just on continental unity? Maybe perhaps starting off with the region and then looking at the rest of the continent. If you just think about this vision of a united Africa that many of the founding fathers, Sam Nujoma, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, and a number of others had during those decades.
Yes, he's committed to the integration of Africa. Nujoma was committed to integration of Africa, but more so that he was committed to SADC integration. That's why from 1990, Nujoma started already preparing for the integration. What did he do? Is to improve the road infrastructure, the railway infrastructure, the port infrastructure, And I can remember that during his time, he has given even the what we call it dry port of Zambia got a dry port there, Zimbabwe got a dry port, DRC got a dry port in Walvis Bay. So that shows already that he was committed to SADC integration. And I can tell you that now you can see the east-west connection. Today, when you drive from here up north to Chiwarongo, you can meet all the trucks from DRC, you can meet the trucks from Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, going to the Namport. So therefore, Comrade Nujoma was, he's an actual architect of the SADC integration. So that's why you could see that definitely he was there. And then from there, it's based on AU that, okay, we should integrate first at regional level before we go to the AU level. Yeah, so meaning we've got, the West Africa, they can integrate there, SADC can integrate here, East Africa can integrate the Maghreb, etc. and so forth. Then from there, after that, then we go down to the whole continent. Yeah, this agenda is still on. That's why we talk about Agenda 2063, is to see that by that time, everything is done with regard to AU integration.
What kind of legacy does it, I think, it's always very difficult for me to ask this question around, okay, what kind of legacy does it leave behind? Because there's so much that has been done. But if you are going to point out the one or two things that you want Namibians to remember about him, what are those one or two things? And how do you think we can continue his legacy?
His legacy, I think I can say, is peace and stability. Here in Namibia, in the region, he wants to see peace and stability. He wants to see economic development in this country. It was not easy, especially in Namibia here. So that's why he, under his leadership, SWAPO brought up this policy of national reconciliation. And what does it mean? I wanted at least to sort of contribute to this one. So many people have talked about that one, on national reconciliation. Yeah, you recall that Namibia was militarized by the minority regime in Pretoria. So as a result, here, the war was being fought right here in Namibia. So you had at least SADF, South African Defense Force here. You got Southwest Africa Territorial Forces here. You got Kufut here. I'm talking about it especially for the new generation. They should know at least this information. They were all here, and they were fighting towards Angola, where the People's Liberation Army of Namibia is. And apart from that, Namibia was segregated according to ethnic groups. So therefore, it was in 1989, if I recall very well, at the last Central Committee of SWAPO held before they come here, they held in exile, where they adopted the policy of national reconciliation. How can we go home where we have at least a country that has been at least devastated by South African minorities? How can we go there in one house? We've got a Kufut, we've got a Swati, we've got a plant combatant. Can they really live together? Yeah? It's because of this thing, the national reconciliation, I think, come in to say that, okay, when it was launched here, yeah, then at least everything starts dying down. So you are live here in Namibia as brothers and sisters. We are live here as Namibians, regardless of our ethnic origin. So therefore, I think that we can say he was a father of national reconciliation because he wanted peace and stability in Namibia, and he wanted social progress, he wanted economic development in Namibia. So the legacy, I can say, and he is a leader who is committed to SADC integration. But as I said earlier, that you can see that, okay, all landlocked country has now been access to the international market via NAMPORT. Yes.
Well, Ambassador, thank you so much really for making time out to come and join us here. I would just wanted you to share maybe your final message of condolence to the Namibian nation.
My final message is that I think let's really continue on the legacy that has been created by Comrade Nujoma. It's now 35 years we have been enjoying peace. Let's maintain peace. Let's continue with the development of our country. Let's continue with tranquility of our country. So therefore, I think let's move on, despite the fact that Comrade Nujoma is no more there. Let's move on. And I can tell you that this thing is just like an athlete. It started with our forefathers, and it came to Mahareros, it came to Nihare Jampingana, Mandumande File, and it came to Ipumbuya Chirongo, it came to Nuyomas. The generation continue, and we are here as Namibians, and we've got nowhere to go. This is the only country we have in the whole world. Therefore, let's maintain peace and stability in this Namibia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Yeah.
There we go, of course, Ambassador Wilbert Halal, for reflecting a little bit on the relations with the late president, his leadership style and approach to foreign affairs, particularly here in the region, as he was the first ambassador to be posted to Zambia immediately after independence in 1991 by Dr. Sam Nujoma. Stay with us. When we come back, we continue with our conversation this morning.
I would just like to send my condolences to the Nujoma family. Truly, Sam Nujoma is somebody who has fought for our liberation, and it's part of the reason why our country is independent today, till this date. So he has done impeccable things for our country, and it only keeps elevating because he decided to take the first step. So we will always hold him dear to our hearts. He will not be resting, in as much as he'll be resting in peace, he'll also be resting in power.
I just want to send my condolences to our first president, the founding father, to his family, Dr. Sam Nujoma. Yes, so I just want to leave some scriptures that may God be with him, and the Lord is their light and their salvation, according to the book of Psalms 27. So they should not fear, because the Lord is with them. Though our grandfather, our father, our guardian has left, we have courage. Our courage is in God. So we should just hope in God.
We want to send our sincere condolences to the Nujoma family and the whole of Namibia. So let's stay strong and rest in peace, our father.
The family must be strong. We lose the hero, our great father. We say rest in peace in the name of Jesus. Amen.
It's really sad to lose such a humble and inspirational person like him. It's really sad.
I would like to give my condolences to the family members and friends of the founding father of Namibia.
I'm sorry for our Namibian nation to lose our founding father. May God be with you guys, and I know all is gonna be well once again.
They must be strong, even this situation. Even us, we are not happy. We really lost the pink man, the pink star in the earth, on the earth. So, what we want to say here, he must rest in peace.
It's a great loss for the nation of Namibia. We are in deep loss. Everyone is feeling bad. It's terrible. When the news hit, my heart skipped a beat. And it just felt like it just felt like we as a nation lost a great treasure. The late President Nujoma was a great hero. He was a symbol of peace. He was a symbol of courage. He was everything that Namibia needed to go through the liberation struggle. And for that, we are forever grateful. His legacy will live on.
My deepest condolences to the Nujoma family as we are mourning our founding father, our founding president, and our prayers and thoughts are with them, with the whole family. So
our condolences to the family, friends, and the wife of Dr. Sam Nujoma to place peace through this tough time, and yeah, just to we keep them in our prayers.
Welcome back. Dr. Sam Nujoma laid in his commitment to freedom, democracy, and economic development continues to influence Namibia's trajectory, nurturing a legacy that resonates with future generations. As Namibia moves forward, Nujoma's ideals remain intertwined with the country's aspirations for growth, prosperity on the world stage. The late Nujoma appointed Nhwebe as his representative to South Africa from 1993 to 1994 with a specific task of ensuring the reintegration of Walvis Bay into Namibia after the country gained independence. This was at the height of the crucial negotiations for the return of the harbour town and its offshore islands. We now speak to Ambassador Joshua Nhwebe and how it was working under the leadership of the founding president. Ambassador, thank you so much for making time out to join us this morning.
Thank you very much.
First and foremost, before we get into the conversation around your work with the late president, where did the news of his passing find you, and what were some of your initial reactions to the news?
Well, I was in Windhoek for a different reason, and we knew that he was hospitalized, but we did not expect that his demise very soon while I was here in Windhoek. And I was filled with shock and with sorrow, I must say. Because I thought that he would, as strong as he is, he would recover and would come out from the hospital at least for a couple of months or even for years. But when this happened, I was deeply sad, and I'm very sorrowful for what has happened to our leader, the founding father of the Republic of Namibia.
What was your first encounter with the founding father? When did you meet him first?
Well, that history is a very long one.
We
worked very closely together during the early struggles, when he was still the leader of the labor movement, trying to improve the lives of the Ovamboland speakers who came from the north to come as a contract laborers. And it was during that time that I, as a young teacher at that time point, met Nujoma for the first time. I knew exactly where he was living, under which condition he was living, and what his aspirations were, because we already dealt with that way back, just before even during the Windhoek massacre in 1959, 1960. So I met him during that time.
So that's around 1959, 1960 that you met
Yes.
for the first time?
Yes. And I met him again when there was a commission of inquiry about the shootings in 1959 up to 1960, when he was put on the pedestal to answer some of those things that happened, because he was accused as the main instigator of what happened in the old location during that period of time.
Is it also the same time that they had sort of called on Oliver Tambo to come and assist, and he wasn't allowed to come into the country and was deported back?
Exactly. It was during that time. Yes, it was during that time that he was called to come and defend and assist legally the whole process. But Oliver Tambo was stopped at the airport and was sent back to South Africa.
Chat to us a little bit about those earlier years. So you met around 1959, 1960 the first time around. What was some of the earlier work that you did together during the struggle days?
It was the work that we were doing together was to organize the resistance to the move to Katutura. That was the main thrust of our struggle during that period of time, to mobilize the community in the old location to resist at whatever cost to move to the new to Katutura. That was the main connection that we had.
What did you make of his leadership style during the time? I think a lot of people say that he was very stand on discipline and respect among the rank and file during the liberation struggle. Can you reflect a little bit on his leadership style during that time?
Well, he was really a democratic disciplinarian, but he was always consultative. He never did anything before consulting his comrades around him. And if there was a deadlock in his own conviction, he would then say, well, let's break the meeting, let's break up the consultation, and then he would go to bed, and the next day he would come up with a resounding answer, solution to the problem that we were discussing earlier on. That is how I know him. He was a democratic and consultative leader.
Well, the first posting is now in 1993, I think, to South Africa. And it was, of course, also during quite a tense period. Talk to us about how you received the news of the posting to South Africa, and what were some of the initial instructions or expectations from the president?
Well, the instruction that he gave me was a very difficult one, and that is to try to get Walvis out from the control of South Africa at that point in time. You would remember, you see, that when independence came, it was without Walvis Bay. And we were told by the early negotiators that, in fact, let's leave Walvis Bay out for a moment and go for independence. I think that's what, and then deal with the question of Walvis Bay later on. And of course, Nujoma must have advised, his lieutenants that this is the way to go. Some of us did not like that at all. We thought that it's Namibia with Walvis Bay or nothing at all. And that was the attitude of many of the rank and file of the Namibian people. But this was a decision. This was, I think, a very wise decision from the part of Nujoma to say, let's go for independence first, and we can deal with that with Walvis Bay step by step.
Because that could have delayed the overall process.
It could have delayed the overall process of independence. So independence first and then Walvis Bay later.
later. So now your point to South Africa, of course, is quite tense. They are also dealing with their own issues with their run-up to independence now in 1994. Talk to us a little bit around that. What were some of the initial challenges that you had to deal with, and how did you work with the president to overcome some of those?
The initial challenge was, first of all, myself, because I was never in a diplomatic service. I was not part of the first crop of diplomats that were trained and sent out in different parts of the world. But when this issue came up, I was the only one, probably, that was left that he would. And he called me and he told me that, that my task, what my task would be. And he trusted me in the hands of a late comrade, guerrilla, to undergo a special crash course, a crash course that was arranged with Ambassador Debra of Ghana. So I was his only student, and he took me through a crash course of 2 weeks, what diplomacy means. I was initially hesitant because I thought that I'm not really ready at that point in time. I was not well groomed in diplomacy to go and undertake this mammoth task.
Because I understand during the time it was an incredible amount of, in terms of just the decorum, the way you need to behave as an ambassador, I mean, the seating style, how to greet the others, etc., etc. And I understand that very, very experienced ambassador that was sent from Ghana was apparently very, very staunch in terms of how things are supposed to be done and the protocol that must be followed.
Well, he told me how to walk. My walk style must be completely different. It must be ambassadorial. When I sit down, it must be ambassadorial sitting down. If I have to rise from the chair, it must be ambassadorial. I don't know what that means. If I sit down on the table, it must be ambassadorial. He told me everything that, the way you walk, even if you walk away from a number of people, they would be looking at you from looking at your back, and that walk must impress them. Your walk must be impressive. The way you speak must be honest and must be impressive. It must be calm and very respectful in many ways.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced during the negotiations for the integration of Walvis Bay?
The biggest challenge was to identify the role players. First of all, I have to determine who the main role players would be in that negotiations at Kempton Park, when the South Africans were discussing the future political dispensation of their country. And I had to try to see with whom can I make friends? Whom can I approach with a lot of caution without breaking the protocol? And I met during that period of time a lot of people, even Constance Viljoen, the gentleman who was the leader of the army that, in fact, attacked Kasinga. We spoke to him, and I spoke to him very often in Afrikaans, and he was surprised, that there was a black man that could speak Afrikaans better than themselves. That's what I'm saying. I also met Lang Jan van den Berg, the gentleman who established the Kufut force here in Namibia.
Yeah.
And whenever I met him to talk to him, there was a cold chill coming down on my spine. And I was just wondering, whether I will survive in the presence of this kind of people who have done so much harm to the people of Namibia.
In terms of that, I mean, obviously it takes a lot of trust for you to be sent out like that on this big mission in the middle of that reintegration conversation. What was the point at which you knew that, okay, I think we might we might be successful with this negotiation?
Well, I was fortunate in that case because I had young officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because I informed Kalkurirab that, in fact, this is a task that is getting bigger and bigger on a daily basis. And he sent to me, as my lieutenants, Andreas Guibeb, who was by that time in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Pius Sunaski, who many people know that he's a journalist, but he also joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. These people were sent to me, and they were like Aaron, and that's biblical thing. When Moses was getting tired, his hands were held up by Moses and by Aaron and Joshua, in order to continue the fight. So these people were very pivotal in assisting us, because we would discuss the strategy as to what we are going to do on a daily basis by meeting the various role players at Kempton Park to see which one can we take and what are we going to say to them at that very moment in time.
In terms of that, I think from just the style of negotiation, what can you share with us, especially for us, the young ones that were really not present during that time in 1994, about the late president's negotiation style?
He was a strategist. He was a visionary. He could see things coming. And I remember that step one was the joint administration of Walvis Bay. That was step one. And step two was to a diplomatic attack, to be present when things were happening at Kempton Park, to send a diplomat and a number of foreign operators to be right there to influence the direction with regard to Walvis Bay.
In terms of the setting up and establishment, of course, of the diplomatic service, we know right at the independence, that was also a challenging item where we see that support came in from Ghana and a number of others as well. What is his legacy within the diplomatic service and just the reflection on his foreign policy and outlook on foreign policy, particularly for the SADC region? You
mean President Nujoma?
President Nujoma.
Oh, yes, immense. His influence was immense. His touch was on everything, literally. On the administration, on the diplomatic front. He never let go anything when he gets hold of something and he thinks that this is the way to go. He would hold on to that until he achieved his purpose. That was the way he was. He was a formidable leader, very formidable. He would never. He was a man of detail. When somebody tells him something yesterday, he would remember them tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And he would come back and make you to be responsible for what you have said yesterday. That was the kind of a man he was.
And I think during the time, but particularly with the posting in South Africa, we know that at 1994, that's now when the independence of South Africa also coincided with the handing over of Walvis Bay to Namibia as well. Just chat to me a little bit about that transition that South Africa was going through, and now having to deal with it was an enemy for the longest time, and now it's also taken over now by a liberation movement, and there's a new government coming in. Chat to me a little bit about that transition and what were some of the items you needed to look out for to make sure it was smooth.
Well, I realized, you see, that the power was transferred from Cape Town, from the parliament in Cape Town to Kempton Park. It was a very daring and very brave move by the people of South Africa, that the last word with regard to Walvis Bay was not spoken in Cape Town. but it was spoken at Kempton Park. And historically, Kempton Park is very important in the sense that General Kemp, after the First World War, assembled a number of commandos at that place to invade Namibia under the leadership of General Botha at that time in town. So historically, it was a very important place that the last word about any part of Namibia should be spoken in Kempton Park rather than in Cape Town. You would probably recall that Walvis Bay, as the issue that we are discussing, has been for 116 years in the hands of foreigners. First, it was a British colony or enclave. Ever since 1878, I think. And then when South Africa became a union in 1910, it was given over to Cape Town because some of the British colonies, Natal and Cape Town, were British colonies. And so here was an enclave which was also British owned. So it was handed over to, when South Africa became a union, Britain handed over Walvis Bay to Cape Town, literally, to administer from there by the union.
Well, the reintegration is, I think, of course, we know that we are commemorating the life and times of President Nujoma, and this really ties directly into that legacy as well. 30 years was marked last year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a gala dinner planned for this weekend and some activities that were supposed to take place. I'm sure those ones are postponed for now. But just reflect a little bit in closing on, the reintegration of Walvis Bay and what that meant for the overall development trajectory of Namibia.
Well, Namibia Walvis Bay geographically is part and parcel of the Namibian territory. What happened politically around it is a different story, but it is part and part of the Namibian territory. And it's actually very important as an economic hub, but also important for the rest of the SADC countries. It's important for Botswana, especially for the landlocked countries, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and so forth. And we see that Walvis Bay is playing a pivotal role to assist the landlocked countries with the import and the export endeavors.
One of the things, and I think before we close off with that conversation, there was also another chat around reintegration, the Kasikili Islands. Some say, I know it was perhaps during President Nuyoma's time, it was one of those that many see that maybe it was too much of a compromise to give that one up. But what is your reflection on that, having that experience of the work that you've done with Walvis Bay, where it was located, of course, geographically, and in comparison to the conversation and negotiations around Kasikili Island and how those turned out?
After Walvis Bay, Pretoria, South Africa, I was transferred to Botswana. And I was asking myself, why? Why me? But then I realized that there was an issue of Kasikili Island, which is nothing but about just 2 or 3 soccer fields, the size of it. And I was sent there to calm down the tension that was there because of the grabbing of Botswana by South Africa. By grabbing of the island by Botswana on the eve of independence of Namibia. That's what they did. So I was sent there to calm down the tension that was developing because of that island. And the first thing that I did was to become a good friend, to become a friend of Ian Khama, who was the military man. What was his title? Botswana General. You know, he was the general of the armed forces. And part of the armed forces were used by him in order to be game wardens, you know, along the long stretch of the Linyande River. So I became friends of his. And that friendship created an atmosphere that, in fact, during the period that I was there, I think about 8 years I was there, no casualty was ever experienced, no tension was there. Because if you in the diplomatic atmosphere become friends of those people who are holding the guns, then you have really won most of the battle. And the army became calm, we became friends. Very often I went to Kasane with my car, and then they knew that I was there, and they would send out the soldiers in order to protect me. Very often there were a lot of elephants, you know, along the road when my car was coming, and then the Botswana army would come, and the elephants will disappear. I don't know what magic they had, but they protected me in so many ways. I became friends of Ian Khama in many ways. He visited Namibia several times, especially some of the lodges that we have, to come and see how we are doing things. And I would, at the last moment of he would ask me to facilitate his entry to Namibia, and I would do that. And I think he had a great respect for me for that reason.
What kind of legacy does the founding father leave behind within the diplomatic circles, diplomatic community in the continent? We know he was a staunch advocate also in the international space as well, multilateral organizations. What kind of legacy does he leave in the diplomatic circles?
I think he certainly has a great influence and guiding principle, and that is that diplomacy is a very important part in the life of a nation. And therefore, he never let go and the importance, never underestimated the role that diplomats play in building up the relationships between nations. And if you have friends on the left and the right hand side, then you can comfortably peacefully develop the way you want it. You want your country to develop.
In conclusion, Ambassador, how do you want us to remember President Nujoma going forward as a nation?
Yes, we must remember him as a builder of this nation, single-handedly. Obviously, of course, he selected a number of people around him to assist him because he's a soldier. And his vision should not die to make this country great, as small as it is, to make this country great. We must be disciplined. That is his desire. We must be forward-looking. We must be friendly to others. And we must be hard-working. And we must develop this country to the best of our ability. And that was always his. And that is why he would use his hands to try to show us an example by building the railway line between Tsumeb and the north. And he was there almost every weekend, to show us that this is what we should do. We must put our hands on the plow in order to do things hands-on.
Ambassador Mohamed, thank you so much for making time out to join us. Of course, the kind of institutional memory that you're sitting with Not many have that, so we are grateful for you to come into the studio and really just share with us, particularly on the integration of Walvis Bay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ambassador Nujoma, of course, our first ambassador in 1993, posted to South Africa between 1993 and 1996 to really deal with the reintegration of Walvis Bay, who had just marked 30 years last year. There's some activities, of course, lined up in the next couple of weeks for that commemoration as well. Stick to NBC and we'll keep you informed. When we come back, we continue to look at the influences of the founding father and the founding father of the Republic of Namibia, the father of the nation, the first president of our country, and his influences in setting up the diplomatic service in 1990, and of course his interactions with bilateral and multilateral platforms before and after independence through the years, and of course the memories of many of the ambassadors that were trained under his tutelage and that also got unique responsibilities during his time in office. Stay with us. When we come back, we continue with more. Well, welcome back to this special interview session where we have the privilege of speaking with distinguished former ambassadors who have played a crucial role in shaping Namibia's diplomatic relations. Now, Ambassador Frida Ithete, which was the High Commissioner of Namibia to Zambia from 1999 to 2005 under His Excellency Dr. Sam Nujoma, who now joins us for that next conversation. Also, of course, Ambassador of Namibia to France formerly, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and permanent representative of Namibia to the UNESCO and FAO from 2010 to 2018 under His Excellency President Hifikepunye Pohamba. Today we are honored to be joined online by Ambassador Ithete, who served as Namibia's ambassador up until 2018 during a pivotal period in our nation's history with a wealth of experience in international relations. And she's been instrumental, of course, in strengthening bilateral ties, promoting economic cooperation, and representing Namibia on the global stage. A very good morning to you, Ambassador Ithete, and thank you so much for making time out to join us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ambassador Ithete, I think before we
You know, Tatekuru Nujoma was too unique in many aspects. I think in this regard, I may say that his desire for learning, you know, even in his old age, Tatekuru believed in learning. He believed that learning is key to everything. The other point I may say here is his total commitment. Total commitment to Namibia and Africa. Tatekuru Nujoma, whenever you meet him, for him the topic should be Namibia or Africa, the interest of Namibia and Africa. So I think those are some of the key things I can say in that aspect.
In conclusion, Ambassador Ithete, what is the best way for Namibians basically to celebrate his legacy and to continue his legacy? How do you want him to be remembered by the Namibian nation?
Well, you know, I think we are all in agreement as a nation that the passing of our founding father, President Safishuna Nujoma, left a monumental legacy that will be difficult to match. That's my observation. All I can say is that may his legacy continue to inspire the Namibian nation to live in peace, unity, as it was like his song, and harmony. May the soul of our founding father rest in eternal peace. Finally, also, I would like to extend my heartfelt condolences to Mekuru Ovambo, Honorable Tony Nujoma, and Saki Nujoma, and the entire bereaved family.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for making time to talk to us.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador Frida Ithete there, of course, former ambassador to Zambia, as well as immediately after that, of course, Portugal, France, and a number of other countries speaking to us and just sharing an experience, so the first posting by the president and, of course, his work under the diplomatic community. When we come back, we continue with more on this special broadcast here on NBC One. Don't forget, of course, to also follow us and engage with us on our digital platforms, NBC Digital News, on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, as well as on Instagram for any questions, comments, or inputs on our programming as we continue to cover the life and times of the Founding Father. Stay with us. The former Namibian ambassador to Russia, Dr. Samuel Bambo, says Dr. Safishuna Nujoma was an exceptional man. He describes the late statesman as a towering figure not only on the African continent, but of course also globally. It was President Sam Nujoma who appointed Ambassador Dr. Bambo to Russia. NBC reporter Francis Shahama caught up with him earlier. Let's have a look.
Namibia is mourning the death of its founding president, Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma. This morning, we are joined by Ambassador Dr. Samuel Kaveto Mbambo to tell us more about the legacy of the late. Ambassador Mbambo, we understand that the late actually appointed you. Let's talk about some of your personal encounters with him.
Yes, let me start by saying we have, as Namibian, to thank God for a gift that he gave to us as Namibian in the form of a person like Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma, who led us during the struggle, and he still continued leading us after the independence. He was an exceptional man. On the sphere of the political arena, I may say, is one of the towering figures on the continent of Africa and even globally. You cannot write a book today about the liberation struggle of Africa or the liberation struggle of the oppressed people in the world without mentioning his name. That book will be incomplete. Now, coming to personal encounter, my personal encounter with him was when he appointed me as the ambassador to the Russian Federation. The day before we were announced, he called me in his office and he said, "We are going to send you to the Russian Federation. Remember, that country was the Soviet Union, the country that stood by us through thick and thin, the country that did a lot for us. Now, when you go there, it's like going to the house of a good friend, and you have to behave yourself accordingly, because that country is like our friend, people who stood by us." And I could see that this is a person who is serious with the job, and he always gives a thorough thought, serious thought, before he executes his thoughts, like appointing, in this context, appointing the ambassadors. Up to now, I may say, I'm not sure what did he see in me to appoint me to one of the very important missions in the world. You know, in diplomacy, all the countries are equal, but some countries are more equal than others. In this regard, Russia is one of the Permanent Security Council members. So, sending me there, me coming from the background of theology, coming from the background as a teacher, up to now is a riddle to me to know why did he send me there. But I believed in him. The second encounter is now when he visited Russian Federation. He visited Russian Federation. He was already out of office, but he was invited by the friendly university of the Russian Federation. That was known in the old days as the Petrus Limbumba University. He was invited to be confirmed, to be conferred with a doctoral degree. The day when he arrived, I received him and we went in his room, and he said, "I brought a letter with me from the president, Hifikepunye Pohamba, and he instructed me that I should give this letter in personal to him. So now talk with the protocol of the Russian Federation, of the office of the president. By that time, it was Dmitry Medvedev. And then I conveyed the message to them. And these people, the security, the protocol said, no, the president is very busy. So we tried to convince them, but later he said, the late president, Nujoma, he said, okay, give this letter to them. They should give it to the president. So we gave that letter to them. They took it to the president. The next morning, we saw them running, coming back. And they said, you know what? The President Medvedev said, 10 o'clock. That time it was 8 o'clock. He said, today, 10 o'clock, he would like to see the president. So, but we said, you said he's busy. No, he canceled all the appointments. He wants to see the president. So we arranged and we went in, we met him. You know, his words, President Medvedev still lingers in my mind. He said, today I have the opportunity to meet my childhood hero. Sam Nujoma is one of my childhood hero. So that, for me, was something very important. Secondly, in the evening, the day after, in the evening, he said, we went to a reception. There were two other, by that time, they were serving presidents. I will not mention the names of those countries. They were already in, and everybody was expecting now, waiting for His Excellency, President Sam Nujoma, to come in. When he came in, everybody stood up. That aura, the Nujoma aura, felt the house, and everybody stood up and clapped hands for him. You could see this is a leader, not only for Namibia, but he is a world leader. So when we came back to his room, there were some generals, old friends of him, who used to come in Angola to train our plant fighters. And one of them was always telling me about how they used to come, how they used to accommodate their generals when they come, the seniors. And what he said to me, he said, you know, Sam Nujoma was such a leader that when we visit, when our seniors from Moscow visit us in the field in Angola, they were so impressed by the plant fighters, the way how they behave, the discipline, the neatheit, everything. It is impressive. You could see this is a leader who knows what is doing. These are some of the highlights of the encounter with him. And another one on a lighter note, we went in the morning, he went for checkup. And then with his personal doctor, he took him in, he was checked up, and then the doctor, his personal doctor, is still up to his end. He was his personal doctor. He came out jokingly telling me, he said, do you know what? The president is even more healthier than me because my blood pressure is higher. His is normal. We were joking about that. So these are some of the few things, a lot, but these are some of the highlights which I can recall my personal encounter. The last one is when I became the governor of Kavango East Region, and I introduced a program called Operation Werengenge to encourage the local people to produce their own food. And then there was a tour which I made to Comas region, to Erongo region, and Ocho-Jonjupa region. So in my tour, I took some of the mahangu flours. Mahangu, here's a local company that is making mahangu flour. It is Usurawetu. So I took it to the president and the vice president and so on, so greeting them and said, this is what we are trying to do. And his words to me said, you are doing the right thing. The only way we could stand on our own is when we get to a point of producing our own food. Getting food from other countries is good, but you must always feed your own people. This is a program that should be supported. So I could see he's a person who likes, when coming to agriculture, when coming to food production, that part, is a person who would like to see that each and every person must get into the crop field and start producing his or her own food.
All right, let's talk a bit about the late's vision for the Kavango regions.
As I already mentioned, he was a man of agriculture inter alia, amongst many things. He's a man who encouraged us, a person who encouraged us to study. But when coming to agriculture, he envisioned that this region, Kavango region, by that time, Kavango East and Kavango West was one Kavango, could be a food basket of Namibia and maybe export food to the other parts of the world. So he wanted to see that the river with such perennial water should be utilized to our benefit. The vision, to my mind, if I may put it in my own way, was that this part of Namibia should be, it must be the food basket of our country.
Apart from what you've already mentioned, what are some of the teachings or lessons that Namibians can learn from the founding president?
First and foremost, let me sum it up, what I learned from him, just by the way he did things, or he behaved himself, he conducted himself, is a person who believed in this old adage that say, quitters never win and winners never quit. He never wavered in what he wanted to achieve, especially the liberation of our country. I can imagine the troubles and the challenges he met during his leadership as a liberation movement, SWAPO. That time, it's not so easy, because I can see that by that time, it was not only Namibia, other countries also. When you try to get those people out of your country, they were not alone. South Africa was not alone. They did have their own big brothers. And they did have all the machineries and all the facilities to make it very difficult for Namibians to get their country. But his eyes was on the prize, and the prize was independence. Things came and it went, but his eyes was fixed on the prize. Namibia must be free. He's a man of consistent, a man of conviction. I can say that he was actually blessed with everything that was that could help him to achieve his dream, his vision, and that is the independence of Namibia.
All right. What would you say?
Well, that was, of course, Francis Shahama speaking to the former Namibian ambassador to Russia, Dr. Samuel Mbambo, of course, reflecting a little bit on his leadership and the relationship with him as well. It's exactly about a minute before 1 o'clock. This has, of course, been the first half of our special broadcast for this morning. We're going to be crossing over to Studio 1 now for the news at 1 with Ndapewa Mbambi standing by to give you that bulletin. Until tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye-bye.